Hey everybody, it's Elliot from Magoosh, and I'm here with a video on how to set up a good work or study space in your home. This is something students have been writing into us about recently because of COVID-19. And actually, this is something that I have wondered about myself because I usually do all of my work in the office, and now I'm doing it all at home. And in my house, I don't have a space, an office space where I usually do my work. So I've had to set something up that's going to work for me. And luckily, on one of the Magoosh test prep experts, Mason, has compiled a list of advice that he gives to students who are writing into us now. I asked him to sort of share that list with me so that I could put it together into a video for all of you so that you could benefit from it as well. Now, as we go through the tips here in this video, I'm going to show you my workspace and how I changed it based on some of the tips that Mason gave. I'm also going to highlight some vocabulary in this video. As an English teacher, I hate to waste a good opportunity to learn vocabulary, so I'm going to present some good IELTS vocabulary as we go through, all right? So keep watching for the tips or the vocabulary, whatever you want to get out of the video here. We're just going to dive right in and go through all of this advice. Starting with tip number 1, aim for balance. Okay, balance, probably a word you're familiar with, right? It's when things are distributed equally, okay? Or one side isn't heavier than the others, okay? Things are balanced. When you're riding a bike, you need to have good balance to stay upright. If you start leaning too far one way and get out of balance, you're going to fall down, okay? So balance is something we're looking for in a work or study space, right? Some related word to balance, equilibrium. This is a less common word, a really good IELTS word to know. Equilibrium can be used in a similar way, okay? So if you're walking and you almost fall down, but you catch yourself and you stand up again and you don't fall all the way to the ground, you're regaining your equilibrium is something that we would say, right? You're getting things balanced again. Equilibrium is really a state of being in balance, okay? So a related word that's really good to know. Another interesting thing about the word balance is that when it's negative, it's imbalance, that prefix im. That's kind of an uncommon negative prefix, and it's a good thing to know if you're going to use the negative form. Okay, so let's think about what we're talking about with aiming for balance in your work or study space. A productive space should be enjoyable, but not too comfortable. Okay, that's why I decided I am not going to set up my workspace, my study space, in a chair like this. This is my one of my comfy chairs in my living room, and I think I would not be as productive there because it's just too comfortable, right? You want to find something that's sort of in between. It's not uncomfortable, but it is some place where you're not going to just go relax the whole time, right? You want a place that's quiet, but not silent, okay? You want it to be set apart, but not completely isolated, right? You want to be in some way involved in whatever's going on in the rest of your house, but you also need to have some space to concentrate, okay? You want it to be clean, but not bare, okay? So to be bare means there's almost nothing there. Okay, so actually this is the place where I'm doing most of my work. And I think it's got some good balance. Notice the chair there. It's comfy, but it's not as comfy as that chair in my living room. And it's set apart. Okay, it's in my kitchen, and mostly my family is hanging out in other parts of the house. So I know what's going on. I'm not completely separate from them, but I also have some place where I can concentrate, right? The one thing it's probably not so great about this space, though, is it's very bare, okay? There's almost nothing there, right? So that's something, as you'll see later in the video, I'm going to seek to change, is to put some things in there that are going to help me to work in this space. All right, tip number 2, make your space efficient. All right, efficient means that you can get a lot done without much effort, okay? So it means that you're not wasting a lot of effort to do something. And so the idea is very similar to these related words, to be productive, to be effective. you're able to get a lot of work completed without using a lot of energy and without wasting a lot of energy as you're doing it. Okay, so how can we make your work or study space efficient, productive, effective? Okay, so questions to ask yourself. Do you have space for everything you need? Okay, if things are jammed packed into your study space, it's probably going to reduce your efficiency because it's too cluttered. Are books, supplies, things that you need to study, are those close by, right? And similarly, water and snacks, okay? Do you need a clock or a timer? All of those tools that you use to study, and also your water and your snacks being close by, those can make your space more efficient because you're not getting up to go get things. You're not losing what we call your train of thought, right? If you're like me, if you're working really hard on something and you get up and you go get that snack or get that cup of water, whatever it is you need, it's easy to get distracted by other things that are going on, and then you're going to lose that sort of momentum that you had as you were working. Okay, so get all those things nearby. So I'll show you. In my space, you'll notice from the last picture, I've added a couple of things to my space. I added some books that I regularly use, so I don't have to get up and go to my bookshelf to go get them. I just put them right next to me. And you can't really see it, but underneath that red arrow, I've got my headphones. Okay, so if things are going on in the house and I need to be able to concentrate a little bit, that's usually when I put my headphones on so I can sort of reduce some of the noise around me. I've also got my notebook, and I'm going to talk about that later in the video. That's another tool I use to be efficient, and I write notes to myself and keep a list of tasks going. Okay, things like that. You'll also notice my water bottle there, so I can drink from that and not have to get up all the time if I'm thirsty. All right, so these are steps I took, simple things, just to make my space a little more efficient. All right, tip number 3, give your space personality. All right, now that may seem kind of strange to you. Why are we using the word personality with a work or study space? You're probably familiar with the word and how we use it with people or even pets, right? Living things. But what does it mean if a study space, a study station has personality? Well, that means that it is distinctive or unique. It's special in some way. You make it your own, right? You put things in there that are going to make it clearly a space that is for you and that is your space. So make it your own in some way is what we're talking about. All right, so how do we do that? Well, the advice is to arrange some objects in your space. Put some things in there to make it your own space. Put some artwork you like. Put some photos in there. You can even arrange some shapes or colors or things that are going to help you to be creative, right? You could also put something in your space that will serve as a reminder of why you're spending all this time and energy studying for the exam or working or doing the difficult thing that you're doing in your workspace, right? So the one idea would be to put an admissions catalog to the school that you're hoping to get into, right? Put that in your workspace as a reminder of why you're there and what you're doing, okay? So I think it's great advice, and I tried to do that in my space, and I kept it pretty simple for myself. I'm in my kitchen there. I don't want to put a bunch of new artwork up all over my kitchen, okay? But it was kind of nice to put a photo of my kids next to the workspace. That's a nice thing to look at, and it's also motivational for me. All right, tip number 4, create incentives. Incentives to come and work in your work or study space. Okay, what do we mean by that? An incentive is something that motivates you to do something. Okay, so this is something I and probably almost all parents are familiar with. When I want my kids to do something difficult or something they don't really want to do, I often give them some incentives. Okay, so if they need to clean up their room and spend 30 minutes doing that, I will often give them some type of incentive in return. Okay, so if you clean your room, then something good will happen later. Usually it involves getting on getting on, an iPad or something, or getting some type of special treat. Okay, so incentives, a related word, encouragement. Okay, something that's going to encourage you. In this case, we're thinking about study spaces and workstations. Something that's going to encourage you to come back and spend time there, or at least just want to return to that space to do your work. Okay, so here's the tip. Add something to your workspace that motivates you to come back there. So for some people, that can mean keeping a list of things that need to be done. And when you come back to your workstation, you can cross things off the list. That feels great to cross off things. I know other people I work with, are using little sticky notes with their goals on the sticky notes, and they stick their sticky notes around their computer screen as a visual reminder of big things that need to be done. And they tell me that it feels really, really good when you complete a big goal to be able to take that sticky note off the computer screen and put it away, right? So those kind of things can be motivational, actually, and they can keep you focused on what's important to do. You can keep your vocabulary cards, right? If you are studying vocabulary, keep a stack of cards there at your desk, and flip a couple over before you start studying each time, maybe 5 new ones each time. That could be motivational, having a goal to get through all those cards and learn all those words, and putting those things at your workspace can be a motivator to return there. It feels good to get those things done. Keep a plant there, something you need to keep alive. Keep a plant or some fish or something like that. You'll come back to your workspace if you've got to water that thing on a regular basis, right? Most plants don't need daily watering, I guess, but anyway, something that is going to get you back, just an idea. You could also put a puzzle nearby, okay? Get something that you need to complete little by little and come back to it. And it can be really motivational. It's also a nice thing to take a break. If you've got a puzzle there and you want to take a break and do a couple puzzle pieces and then get back to your work and studying that you're doing, that can be another thing. Okay, so create incentives for yourself at your work or study space. All right, so one of the ideas, the first bullet point there that I already talked about, for me, the thing that works great is this to-do list. I love to keep to-do lists, and I love even more to cross things off my to-do list, and I find that very motivational. Okay, so not complicated things here, but it's something that keeps me motivated to continue on and to keep my goals in sight, and then to get a sense of what I've already accomplished in a week or however long it is that I'm keeping track of those goals on my little notebook there. All right, tip number 5, occasionally modify the space. To modify something means to make changes to it, okay? So over time, okay, not every day, but maybe every week or maybe every month or however long you're going to be there, make small changes to it to keep things looking fresh, okay? To keep it fresh. Maybe change out the photos that you have there, or get some new objects that you're going to put in there. Okay, put some new books next to you so you can refer to them. Whatever it is, keep things fresh. Don't keep it the same all the time. Some related words to know: alter. To alter something means to change it. That's a great synonym to use for the word change, as is modify. Okay, nice IELTS level words there. To remake something. It's similar to the idea of modify, although to remake something usually means that you're making big changes. You're almost starting over. So you've got something, and if you remake it, you completely change it, or you change it in a bigger way. Okay, so to remake something is to do it again. All right, so it's a similar idea, but maybe a little bit more. So if in terms of our workspace here, if you're remaking your workspace, you would use that word if you are moving almost everything around into a new position. And that's similar to the word revamp. Okay, to revamp something means to redo it and remake it in a bigger way. Okay, so some great words there to know for IELTS. Related to our discussion here, rearranging things occasionally to keep your space feeling fresh is what we mentioned here for tip number 5, okay? So for my space, I'm just getting started off. I'm not ready to remake things Okay, but I might make some changes over time. You know, my space is pretty easy to move around the house. Okay, maybe I'm going to move my setup to my dining room table or something to get a new view, or something like that. Okay, so you know, different things you can do, but the advice is to not just get stuck in one spot and with one kind of setup. Make some changes occasionally. Okay, tip number 6, keep it orderly. To be orderly means to be neat, okay? So that things are, there's not a lot of clutter, okay? And actually, we're gonna look at those words as related words. To be orderly is to be tidy, clean, neat. And uncluttered, okay, it's a negative form of the word clutter. To be cluttered means the opposite, okay? If something is cluttered, there's too many things. It's not necessarily dirty, okay? It means there are too many things in one small space, and so there's just a lot of objects in one spot, and it feels like there's too much, okay? So to be uncluttered means that there's a nice amount of space for things. Now, everybody has different feelings about this kind of thing. I know some people who like to have lots of stuff around them, and so to one person it might feel cluttered, and to them it feels comfortable. This is obviously something that is up to your tastes and preferences. But for most people, keeping things pretty clean is, pretty tidy and neat and orderly is a good thing for a work or a study space, okay? So the tip, tidiness can help put you into a mind space for working. Now, here's my workstation, and this is how it usually ends up sometime in the late morning or early afternoon. You'll notice my lunch plate is there behind my computer. My kids left their art projects and books nearby, covering my to-do list. I've got my cup there. All right, it's starting to feel less orderly than I would like it to be, and it could be tidied up, okay? So I would want to remove some of these things to get my workstation back to a place where I can really concentrate. Okay, some additional tips. No words for these, just a couple of other tips to throw in here at the end of the video. One that I really like, having access to the outside. Now, I've got a door there. You can see the door behind goes to sort of the back space behind our house. I like to leave that open when the weather's nice, and it feels good. I can hear the birds chirping. It's nice to feel the breeze in there, and that is something I find helps me a lot. If you've got a window, you can set up your station next to the window, and looking outside and seeing what's going on can be really helpful when you're studying, okay? The last tip here, don't study in bed, okay? Lots of good reasons to avoid that. That's my dog there enjoying her bed. But beds do not make great places for studying. We don't have to go into too much detail here, but keeping your workspace separate from the place where you're supposed to rest and sleep is advice that people give about all kinds of things, and also about devices like phones and other things like that. Okay, so avoid studying in bed. Use your workspace for your work, and then when you want to leave your work and studying behind, use other spaces in your house to do that, especially your bed. All right, so hopefully you found these tips and vocabulary helpful. And if you look down in the description below, we've got an additional resource for you there. It's a guide to IELTS vocabulary. So hopefully you find that helpful, and hopefully you can get your workspace, study space set up at home now in a way that's going to be really effective for you. Okay, we'll see you in the next video.